Welcome, my family. Before we jump in, make sure to like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends and family. I'd also love to know where are you watching from and what time is it there. Please hype me on YouTube. Thanks. It started with a list. That's how most of my weekends began, crossing off tasks for Mom. She'd sprained her wrist pruning the lilac bushes too early this year. Stubborn as always, she refused to slow down, so it fell on me to get her spring garden supplies. Potting soil, tomato cages, peat moss, gloves, a new watering wand, the usual suspects whenever South Carolina skipped right over spring and landed headfirst into summer. I didn't mind. It was Saturday morning, bright, but not yet sweltering. The Walmart on Greenfield Road was a quick 10-minute drive. I remember sitting in the car, rechecking the list while the engine idled, hearing Mom's voice in my head like a looping voicemail. "Don't forget the slug pellets, hun. They got my dahlias last year." Her left wrist was in a splint, but that didn't stop her from rambling about getting the rose trellis painted before next weekend's garden club meeting. Typical. She always worried more about her plants than herself. I parked about halfway down the lot. Not too close to the madness up front, but not out in the boonies either. The place had that usual Saturday morning hum. Elderly couples moving slowly side by side, parents wrangling toddlers, a few pajama-clad teens dragging their feet behind shopping carts, probably coerced out of bed with the promise of Chick-fil-A. I grabbed an empty cart and headed toward the gardening section. Already I could imagine the feel of warm plastic from hose nozzles, the synthetic crunch of mulch bags, and the chemically smell of fertilizer lingering in my nostrils. The store was uneventful, routine. I found everything, even picked up a pair of hand pruners Mom didn't ask for but badly needed. By the time I got to the checkout, I was stuck behind a woman arguing with the cashier over some expired coupons. Only one lane open. Of course. Outside, the sun had climbed just high enough to force a squint. I popped the trunk and started loading up, 3 heavy bags of potting soil first, then the smaller odds and ends stacked around them. As I straightened up to stretch my back, I heard footsteps behind me. Not fast or loud, just casual. I didn't even glance at first. Probably someone walking past to their car. But then, out of reflex, I turned. He was standing maybe 10 feet away. I didn't recognize him. Late 20s, maybe early 30s. Fit, athletic, tan skin, buzzed hair, sleeveless tank, basketball shorts, earbuds in. Looked like someone who just wrapped up a morning jog. His expression was neutral, unreadable, like he was still halfway inside whatever playlist he'd been running to. "Hey," I said casually, more out of habit than anything. He didn't say anything at first, just looked at me with his head slightly tilted like he was studying my face. I bent down to grab the last bag of compost when I heard it. Soft, almost casual. "Was it you?" I paused. The voice was low, like a question you weren't supposed to hear. I glanced over my shoulder, expecting him to be talking to someone else. But the lot behind me was empty. No one close enough to hear. I stood up. "Sorry. What?" He was closer now, maybe 5 feet away, smiling. But it didn't reach his eyes. There was something performative about it. Too symmetrical, too stiff. "Was it you?" he asked again. There was a weird tightness in my chest. "Was what me?" I asked, forcing a small laugh. I wiped my hands on my jeans, trying to sound casual. "Think you've got the wrong person." He didn't blink, didn't move. That same smile stayed fixed on his face, like he was watching me try to lie and enjoying it. I turned to shut the trunk, keeping my movements calm. Just a weird interaction, I told myself, no big deal. But then I heard footsteps again, quicker, purposeful. I looked up and he was rounding the other side of the car, heading straight toward me. "You got me transferred," he said suddenly, like he was spitting out a bitter pill. "You did this." His voice was sharp, flat, too sure. The smile was still there, but now it looked strained, almost like it hurt to hold. Something about the way he said it, so direct, so certain, made my throat go dry. There was no confusion in his tone, no accusation, just recognition. like he'd finally found me. What are you talking about? I asked, my voice catching. I don't know you. Don't do that, he snapped. Don't pretend. His posture changed. Gone was the relaxed jogger look. His muscles tensed, arms stiff at his sides. His jaw clenched, then unclenched like he was holding something back. His eyes flicked over my face like he was double-checking a memory he didn't trust. People were still walking by, families, couples, but no one was paying attention. Just another conversation in a busy parking lot. I think you've got me confused with someone else, I said slowly, backing up until I bumped into the rear fender of my car. You think I don't remember your face? He growled. His voice cracked with something, rage maybe, or disbelief, and I suddenly realized he wasn't trying to scare me. He thought he was right. You were the one in the office, he shouted, advancing fast, his whole body shaking with rage. You had that smug look like it was your business. Now I don't have a job. Now I'm out here, and you're just loading a fucking flower food while I'm into your car like nothing happened. I froze, keys still in my hand. My mouth opened, but nothing came out. What? I don't even work in an office. But he wasn't listening. He wasn't even seeing me. His expression changed in an instant, twisted into something I still don't have words for, like his face couldn't decide what emotion to wear. The smile dropped. His eyes went wide, unfocused. Then he screamed, really screamed, his voice cracking open, spit flying with the force of it. You did this. Heads turned. Conversations stopped. A few people paused mid-step, uncertain. A mom pulled her kid in closer. One couple backed slowly toward their car. A teenage boy ducked behind a pickup, peeking over the truck bed. And then he pulled it out. An extendable baton, black steel, the kind security guards carry. He flicked his wrist and it snapped open with a hard metallic click. The sound was unmistakable, like a door slamming shut. My stomach dropped. My legs took over before my brain could catch up. I ran. I bolted around the car, skimming the open passenger door with barely an inch to spare, my voice tearing out of my throat. Call 911, somebody help me. I glanced back, just a flicker, and saw him coming, sprinting full tilt. Baton raised like a club. His face was no longer just red, it had gone a blotchy, terrifying purple. He wasn't yelling words anymore, just guttural sounds, screeches, gibberish. It wasn't anger, it was madness. People watched. Frozen. A mom shielding her toddler, an older man fumbling for his phone but not dialing. Most just stood there, trapped in the kind of disbelief you only feel when reality breaks apart in front of you. All except one. From across the parking lot, a man in a dark uniform came running fast and low like a linebacker at kickoff. Not Walmart security. His patch said something else. Maybe from the movie theater on the far side of the lot. He didn't hesitate. He slammed into the attacker just as the baton came down in a wild arc. They crashed to the pavement. The baton swung again, caught the guard hard in the ribs, then the shoulder, maybe even the side of his face. The guard grunted but held on, grappling from behind, trying to wrestle the weapon from him. I didn't wait to see who won. I ran. Full tilt. My lungs screamed, my legs burned. I ducked behind the next row of cars and dropped to a crouch, heart trying to beat its way out of my chest. Shouts behind me, a voice yelling commands, more screaming, sirens now, sharp and rising. And then, he threw the guard off, like he weighed nothing. I peeked between two bumpers and saw him spinning in place, baton still in his hand, shouting nonsense to the sky, swinging at things that weren't there, eyes wild, spit trailing down his chin. He wasn't seeing us anymore. Not the lot, not the people, not reality. A police cruiser skidded into view. An officer jumped out, taser already raised. Down, get on the ground. The man didn't stop, didn't flinch. The taser fired. 2 darts snapped into his side, wires coiling. His body twitched, but he didn't go down, didn't even stumble. The officer stepped back, eyes wide. He shouted again, voice unsure now. Another cop came from behind, drew his firearm but didn't fire. Thank God. A third officer flanked from the side, waiting for an opening. Then they rushed him. 3 officers, all at once. He fought them like a cornered animal, snarling, howling, frothing at the mouth. It took everything they had to bring him down. Even then, he didn't stop. He thrashed on the ground, kicking and bucking, trying to scream through the dirt. When it was finally over, I sat on the curb, breathing hard, a cold water bottle pressed into my shaking hands. I didn't know who gave it to me. One of the officers knelt beside me. His uniform was dusted with gravel. His eyes were pale and tired. "You okay?" he asked softly. I nodded, just barely. "We've been looking for him for 2 days," he said, glancing toward the squad car where the man, Eric, I'd later learn, was now restrained, still growling under his breath. "Name's Eric, 29. He's not well." He didn't have to say more. I already knew. Turns out, Eric had paranoid schizophrenia. He'd stopped taking his meds, snapped at his job, a tech support center, and accused a coworker of getting him transferred. Believed it so deeply he ran before anyone could get him into a hospital. And that morning in that Walmart parking lot, he thought I was that coworker. Maybe we looked alike. Maybe not. It didn't matter. In the days after, I couldn't stop looking over my shoulder. Couldn't step into a parking lot without remembering his face, smiling and screaming at the same time. I kept asking myself, why me? But the truth is, it wasn't about me. He wasn't chasing me. He was running from something only he could see, a world twisted by fear, paranoia, and pain. I hope he got help. I want to believe that. But deep down, I know, if I'd hesitated for even 1 second too long, I wouldn't be here to say so. I used to think the worst part about working the late shift at Walmart was the customers, the ones who showed up 5 minutes before closing, dragging their screaming toddlers through the aisles like they were on a mission to ruin your night. But I was wrong. The real fear didn't start until I was off the clock, standing alone at that godforsaken bus stop 2 blocks down, waiting for an Uber in the dead middle of the night. I wish I could tell myself it was all in my head, that I misread the situation, or maybe even dreamed the whole thing up. But I didn't. I know what I saw. I know what I felt. And I haven't really slept right since. My name's Emily Carson. I worked the closing shift at the Walmart on Bayview and Lyle, out by the fringe of Jacksonville. Locals just call it the edge. It fits. Feels like the edge of something forgotten. By daylight, it's all retirees, fussy parents yelling about price matches, and teenagers cutting through the aisles to get to the bus stop. But when the sun dips and those automatic doors slide shut for the night, the place changes. It's subtle, but it's real. The air gets heavier, like someone cranked up the gravity. The fluorescent lights buzz a little louder. The shadows settle in deeper. I was in general merchandise, but when you're on nights, your title doesn't matter. You clean up spills, return carts, straighten shelves, take back abandoned items from customers who suddenly change their minds, and scrub down the bathrooms when the janitor ghosts, which he did often. No one wanted this shift. You had to be part insomniac, part crazy to make it past your first month. I was on my 3rd. I stayed because the pay was slightly better, and because, honestly, I didn't have a lot of other options. But the second my shift ended, I was out the door. That Thursday night, I clocked out at exactly 1:07 a.m. Derek, the closing manager, gave me his usual half-assed nod from behind the service desk. I muttered a tired night to Marcy over in pharmacy and pushed through the side employee exit. The parking lot was practically empty, just a few rusted-out sedans parked under the buzzing halogens, and one lone shopping cart turned sideways across a handicap spot, like someone had just said, "Screw it," and walked off. I pulled out my phone and opened the Uber app, thumbed through it, lit a cigarette with a shaky hand. I didn't even smoke before I started working nights. But something about the stillness out there, that empty quiet, the faint hum of the streetlights, It made me crave something, anything to fill the space. Walmart had a strict no-smoking rule. Caught smoking in the parking lot? Write up. Do it again? Fired. So, I had my routine. Walk down Holcomb Avenue past the dark auto shop, cut over to the bus stop on 72nd Street. No buses ran after 10, but the bench was clean and nobody ever hung around. There was this one flickering overhead lamp, buzzing just enough to break the silence without fully killing it. My Uber said 6 minutes. I sat down, pulled my hoodie tighter around me, and started scrolling through Instagram, just tapping and swiping, not really absorbing anything. That's when I noticed him. At first, he looked like any other guy headed home late. Maybe from the gas station around the corner. He was walking slow, hands in his hoodie pockets, head tilted slightly down. The hoodie was pulled up even though the air was sticky and humid. But the second I saw him, something turned in my stomach. Not like butterflies, more like warning bells. I've had that feeling before, walking alone and suddenly aware that someone's behind you, or when a car slows down too much near the curb. But this felt different, heavier. My whole body went tight like it was bracing for something before my mind even caught up. Don't be stupid, I whispered to myself. You work nights. Weird people come out. It doesn't mean anything. I tried to believe that. Really, I did. But then I noticed how he walked. His gait was off. Not limp off, not drunk off. More like he was thinking too hard about each step, trying to mimic casual walking but failing. Like he'd seen people do it, but never done it himself. He passed about 5 feet from me. I kept my eyes on my phone, pretending not to see him. Didn't move. Didn't breathe too loud. But I felt him. I felt him pause. He stopped. Not the kind of stop you make when you drop your keys or check your pockets. No fumbling, no glance around. Just stopped. Then, without a word, he leaned against the glass of the bus shelter, just a few feet away, like he was waiting for something. No buses were coming. Not at that hour. I checked my phone again. 4 minutes until the Uber. I turned my screen brightness down and tried not to move too fast, not wanting to catch his attention. I didn't say a word. Neither did he. But I could feel his eyes on me. Not watching, studying, calculating, like he was trying to figure something out. Like I was a puzzle and he was taking his time putting the pieces together. I stole a glance, just quick enough not to seem obvious. He was younger than I'd thought, maybe early 30s. His hood had slipped back a little, revealing smooth skin that didn't match the heavy, exhausted look in his eyes. There was something unfocused about them. Dark and distant, but still zeroed in on me like I was the only thing in the world he was registering. My stomach clenched. I pulled my bag tighter against my side and tried to keep my breathing steady. Then I remembered what my mom used to say whenever something felt off. If it feels wrong, don't wait for it to prove itself right. I opened the Uber app again. 2 minutes away. He shifted slightly. Just a small movement, enough to make my nerves spike like an electric jolt. Was he about to speak? Step forward? I didn't want to find out. I stood up slowly and moved a few paces away from the bench, careful not to turn my back on him. At first, he stayed where he was. Then he peeled himself off the glass like it took effort, like he was moving underwater and took one slow, deliberate step toward me. That was enough. I raised my phone, turned on the flashlight, and aimed it at his face. I wasn't trying to blind him, just make it clear I saw him, that I wasn't going to pretend he wasn't there. "Can I help you with something?" I asked, trying to sound steady, like I had control over the moment, even though my heart was beating so hard I could hear it in my ears. He smiled, but not the kind of smile you'd want from a stranger. It was wide, too wide, like he was stretching skin instead of lips. "Nah," he said, still standing there. "You're good." He didn't move after that, didn't come closer, but the smile stayed fixed on his face like it had been painted there. That's when I saw his right hand. It was still in his hoodie pocket. It hadn't come out since he walked up. My mouth went dry. I stepped back. 2 careful steps, my legs stiff like I was trying to walk through a nightmare. And then, thank God, my Uber's headlights turned the corner at the end of the block. Twin beams cut through the dark like a spotlight from heaven. I didn't walk, I ran. I didn't even look back. Just made a beeline to the curb and yanked open the back door. And that's when he said it. "You're lucky." His voice was low, just enough to carry. I froze with my hand on the car door. "What?" I asked, turning just slightly. He smiled even wider, if that was possible. I said, "You're lucky, girl." For a second, I just stood there, caught in that strange limbo where you know you should leave but can't seem to move. My driver, Carlos, leaned back and looked at me through the rear view. "Everything okay?" I didn't answer. I just got in and slammed the door behind me. Carlos liked to talk. Normally I hated that, especially after long shifts. But that night, his voice was the only thing anchoring me. I didn't tell him what had just happened. I didn't know how. The guy hadn't touched me, hadn't made a threat. He didn't do anything you could report. But I knew. I knew he had something planned. Something in him was rehearsing, testing, waiting. I didn't go back to that bus stop again. I slapped on a nicotine patch and told Carlos to start picking me up from the back lot instead. I didn't care about the parking lot's dim lighting or the rats near the dumpsters. It felt safer than that bench. But the fear didn't leave. Not really. 3 nights later, I got off early, around midnight. Carlos was 10 minutes away, so I waited in the break room. It was quiet. Derek was glued to his phone, muttering to himself. Marcy had already clocked out. I was the only one left. Then I heard it. 3 knocks. Quick, firm raps on the back door. The employee exit. Nobody ever knocked there. It was locked from the outside. Always had been. I froze. My body didn't want to move, but my eyes drifted toward the camera monitor behind the desk. I needed to see. I needed to know. But the screen was black, static, glitching like an old TV. I just stood there, staring, my ears strained, waiting for another sound, another knock, some clue that it wasn't what I thought. Then my phone rang. Carlos. He was outside. I didn't think twice. I bolted out the front doors and didn't look back. My lungs burned and my palms were sweating, but I didn't care. I just needed to get out. The following week, I found a cigarette butt on the ground, right where I used to sit at the bus stop. The same brand I smoked. The same exact filter markings. I never told anyone where I smoked. Not a soul. People think horror is ghosts, monsters, shadows creeping through the dark. It's not. Real horror is the moment you realize you're being watched. Not by something inhuman, but by someone. Someone who's been thinking about you, studying you, choosing a moment when you're alone. Vulnerable. He didn't need to grab me. He didn't need to say what he was thinking. He just needed me to know. He could have. That's what I live with now. That knowledge, that certainty, that he's still out there, waiting for someone else to make a mistake, to hesitate, to not be so lucky. In retail, chaos doesn't always come from someone arguing over a 50-cent coupon or a toddler melting down in aisle 7. Sometimes it's how fast a normal, boring day can flip on its head and turn into something you'll remember forever, for all the wrong reasons. It was January, cold enough to finally see your breath in Monroe, Louisiana, which doesn't happen often. I was working second shift at the Walmart on Bellevue Road, 1 p.m. to 10 p.m., 5 days a week. Same thing every day. Stock shelves, help confused customers, steer clear of the weirdos. I was trying to save up enough to move out of my parents' place and maybe get into nursing school. Most shifts blurred together. But that Tuesday, that one carved itself into my memory. I remember the exact date because the whole town had gone into panic mode that week. First real cold snap of the season, and you'd think the world was ending. By 3 p.m., the store was a madhouse. People swarming like it was Black Friday, snatching up milk, bread, space heaters, bottled water, like snow was going to trap them for weeks. Around 7 p.m., the rush finally began to die down. I was in Home Goods, rearranging a knocked-over Tupperware display, when Marcus's voice crackled over the walkie. "Hey, y'all seeing what's going on outside?" Marcus was one of our older greeters, late 60s, always wore a vest that hung off him like a curtain and called everyone sugar, no matter their age or gender. There was something steady about him. Hearing that unease in his voice made me pause. "Got some kind of mess happening in the parking lot. 2 groups of girls. Looks like high schoolers. Might want to get AP on standby." Asset protection, our version of store security. They weren't cops or anything, just regular employees trained to handle shoplifters and flag down real trouble if needed. Most of the time they just followed sketchy folks around pretending to straighten shelves. I looked through the front windows near the automatic doors. Sure enough, there were maybe 8 or 9 teenage girls gathered near the cart corral, split into 2 cliques, facing off like rival teams. They weren't touching each other, but their body language said everything. Folded arms, pacing feet, narrowed eyes locked on each other. You could feel it from inside, this weird pulsing tension in the air, the kind you feel just before punches start flying. That moment stuck with me. The air felt different, thick, almost like it was holding its breath. But just like that, the standoff fizzled. One group peeled off toward the Wendy's down the road, the other wandered into the store. I figured it was over. "Just a bunch of kids trying to act hard," I muttered to Raina, who was restocking bakeware across from me. She glanced up from a shelf of muffin tins and shrugged. "Probably just being dramatic. You know how high school girls are." But they weren't just being dramatic. The group that came inside wasn't loud at first. They split up, pretending to browse, but I kept an eye on them. One of them stood out. Red-dyed hair, purple hoodie, phone out like she was vlogging. "No way I'm leaving my taser at home next time," she said, half laughing as she panned the camera toward her friends. They giggled and wandered down the aisle like they were filming some TikTok stunt. I rolled my eyes and went back to stacking throw pillows. Later, I heard that AP had started trailing them after one girl tucked a spatula into her oversized tote bag. They didn't stop her, though. Store policy says you wait until someone tries to walk out before you confront them. You have to see them leave with the item. That part will matter later. Things felt normal for a while. I forgot all about them until around 8:15 p.m. That's when the screaming started. Not the playful kind you hear from kids in the toy section. This was sharp, raw, and furious. It sounded like someone was being dragged against their will or just snapped. I was walking back from the break room with a bottle of water when it hit me, echoing down the main corridor like a siren. I didn't even think, just headed toward the noise, toward the front of the store. And that's when I saw them. The second group of girls, the ones who had walked toward Wendy's earlier. They were back, and they weren't shopping. They were standing right inside the automatic doors, screaming into the store like they were summoning something. "Where y'all at? Come out now. We know you in here. Don't try to hide." Their voices were shrill, piercing like knives in the air. The energy in the whole front end shifted. Customers near the registers froze. Employees backed off instinctively, unsure what to do. Marcus stepped forward, raising both hands. "Y'all need to calm down or leave," he said, firm but still that same sweet tone. "You can't just shout in here like that, sugar." They ignored him completely. One of them, tall and thin with a tight slicked-back bun, started pacing in front of the registers like a predator. Another girl was shouting louder than the rest, screaming threats. "She gon' get her teeth kicked in when I find her," she yelled, voice cracking with rage. It wasn't just drama anymore. It felt like something was truly about to go down. I remember thinking, someone needs to call the cops, right now. Then, just when I thought it couldn't escalate more, a voice answered back. From inside the store, "I'm coming out as soon as my sister gets here." It was the girl in the purple hoodie. Her voice came from somewhere near the back, steady but laced with something I couldn't quite place. Fear, defiance, maybe both. Before anyone could even respond, one of the girls from the door group, a tall, wiry one with a hard glare, stormed in like a missile. She didn't hesitate. No shouting, no posturing, just straight toward the girl in the hoodie like she'd been summoned. It was like watching a lit fuse reach the edge of a firework. And then they were on each other. No warning, no buildup. Just fists flying, wild, chaotic punches in the middle of aisle 3 near the candy racks. There was no screaming from them, just the sick, dull thuds of contact, the kind that makes your stomach flip. People scattered. A woman near the gum display dropped her bag of Cheetos and grabbed her toddler, running full tilt toward the pharmacy side. A manager came sprinting from the electronics section yelling, "Stop! Stop! Hey, break it up!" But it was already out of his hands. And then something happened, something I couldn't process in the moment. The girl in the hoodie reached into her waistband, quick, almost instinctual. She pulled something out, small, metallic. It caught the fluorescent light and flashed once like a signal. I thought it was a phone at first, or maybe pepper spray. She swung her arm low, like she was aiming a body blow. It looked clumsy, like a desperation move. But when her hand connected, the entire world around us seemed to glitch. The girl who got hit took a step back, then another. Her face changed, something vacant flickered in her eyes, and she just collapsed. Like her strings had been cut. I stood there, frozen in place. A scream went up again, but not from her this time. From everyone else. The girl in the hoodie stepped back, stunned. Her mouth hung open like she hadn't expected the hit to land, or maybe didn't expect what came after. She didn't say a word. She just turned and bolted down the seasonal aisle, knocking over a stand of Valentine's bears. Her friends chased after her in a panic. One of them dropped her phone as she ran. The girl on the floor, she didn't move. She just stared down at her chest like she was trying to understand what had happened. Her knees buckled again. This time she didn't get back up. I didn't see the blood right away. It was only when one of her friends screamed, really screamed, and dropped to the floor beside her, trying to roll her over, that I noticed the spreading stain. A deep red blotch soaking through the front of her pale sweatshirt, like someone had spilled wine down her torso. She gasped, not like someone catching their breath, but like she was drowning. Her breaths were sharp, wheezing, wet, high-pitched, panicked. Someone yelled, "Call 911!" Another person behind the jewelry counter started crying, loud, shaking sobs. The manager, hands trembling, was already on the phone, trying to talk to dispatch through his own shock. His voice cracked. Yes, stabbing. Aisle 3, teenager, she's bleeding, she's not responsive. Please hurry." I'll never forget that sound. Her breathing. It was like trying to suck air through a straw underwater. Raspy, thin, desperate. The kind of sound that etches itself into your brain and refuses to fade. Paramedics arrived quickly, but it still felt like an eternity. They shouted commands as they cleared the front end, moving customers toward the back. Managers started organizing employees by department. We were told to stay in the break room while the police showed up. Even from back there, I could hear the girl's friends sobbing near the front doors. One of the EMT's voices rang out sharp and clear. "We're losing her." A few minutes later, they rolled her out on a stretcher, chest wrapped in white gauze that was already soaking through. Her lips were turning blue. She looked impossibly small. They wouldn't answer when anyone asked if she was going to be okay. They closed the store at 9 p.m. sharp. I was told I could clock out early, but I didn't even make it to my car. I walked home, numb, shaking, heart pounding in my throat. I couldn't stop replaying it. How fast it happened, how young they all were. None of them looked older than 15. I kept telling myself maybe she'd make it. Maybe it wasn't that deep. Maybe the blood looked worse than it really was. Then at 9:45, my phone buzzed. It was Jasmine, one of the high school girls I worked with on weekends. "You were working tonight, right?" "Yeah," I typed back. "You saw all that?" Before I could even respond, another message came through. "Girl, look at this. She sent a Facebook Live link. I didn't want to open it. My thumb hovered over the play button. Some part of me already knew it was going to mess me up worse than I already was. I tapped it anyway. The video started with 4 of the girls in the backseat of a car, phone aimed at their faces, laughing like they'd just come from a movie. "That Monet Crise came at us," one of them yelled toward the camera. "We warned her. She knew what it was. Ain't nobody tell her to come swing first?" Then the girl in the purple hoodie leaned closer, eyes locked on the lens. Her voice was flat, calm. "I aimed for the heart," she said. A beat. Then she smiled. "Told y'all, don't play with me." She laughed. I turned it off. I couldn't listen anymore. The next morning, we got confirmation. The girl had died before they even got her to the hospital. Her name was Kira, 15 years old, a sophomore at Jefferson High, honor roll student, wanted to be a nurse. It was over nothing. A social media post, a stupid rumor, something about someone talking trash about someone else. I kept thinking about how small she looked lying there, how young they all looked, like my little sister's friends, like girls who still shopped for lip gloss and keychains. And yet one of them had come to Walmart with a blade and used it like it was nothing. I haven't gone back to work since. They offered counseling. I haven't said yes yet. All I can think about is how fast it escalated. How real life doesn't wait for the music to swell or the camera to pan out. How someone can bleed out between racks of discounted plastic bins and Valentine's candy. And how you never ever expect it to happen, until it does. Right there, in aisle 3. I never liked driving at night, not because of the darkness or the stillness. In fact, I found those parts kind of soothing. It was something else. After midnight, the world just changed. Places you knew, places you trusted, they took on this strange, hollow personality. Streetlights buzzed like they were whispering things you weren't meant to hear. Gas stations felt like purgatory. And Walmarts, those bizarre monuments to American convenience, felt like mausoleums for the insomniac, the forgotten, the quietly desperate. I hadn't planned to be on the road that late. My name's Hannah Walker. I was 29 then, working as an assistant training coordinator for a mid-sized logistics company out of Georgia. The job sent me all over the Southeast to run workshops, attend conferences, talk to clients. I didn't mind it really. I liked the hotel rooms, the anonymous check-ins, the quiet rhythm of travel. It gave me space. Space to think, space to breathe, space to disappear if I wanted. That particular week, I'd been sent to Ashern, Kentucky. Small town. Everyone smiled. Everyone waved. More Baptist churches than traffic lights. The kind of place where the diner waitresses call you hon and genuinely mean it. The conference had run long and I could have easily stayed the night again. But I was restless. I wanted my own bed. So, around 7 p.m., I made the call. 10 hours back to Georgia. I had coffee, snacks, a long queue of podcasts. I figured I'd push through. Everything was fine until somewhere in Tennessee, around 11:45 p.m., when my gas light flicked on with a soft, insistent glow. I didn't panic. There was an exit coming up, Marlow, tiny town, barely a blip on the map. But the sign said gas, and that was enough. The gas station was open, technically. The pumps worked, but the store itself was locked up tight. I could see a woman inside, sitting behind thick bulletproof glass. She looked half asleep, maybe in her 50s, and didn't even flinch when I waved. I walked up to the window and tapped lightly. "Hey, is there anywhere around here I can get food?" She blinked slowly and jerked a thumb over her shoulder. "Walmart," she mumbled through the speaker. "Cross the street, open all night. Only thing that is." I turned. Sure enough, across the narrow 2-lane road was a Walmart, but not one like I'd ever seen. It looked wrong. Too small. Low and boxy. The classic blue and yellow sign was there, but faded, like someone had scrubbed it too hard. The building looked like it had been wedged into a space that didn't want it, like it wasn't built there, just placed. uncomfortably. Still, it was food or vending machine peanuts. I sighed, got back in my car, and pulled into the lot. Only 3 other cars, all spread out like the drivers had intentionally avoided parking near one another. I parked close to the entrance. The glass doors whooshed open automatically, but I paused before stepping inside. The air hit me first. Cold, sharper than it should have been. Not just cool from the AC, refrigerated like I'd stepped into a walk-in freezer. Goosebumps prickled along my arms. The lighting was off too. Not completely dark, but dim. Flickery, like the place was running on backup power. Still, it looked like a Walmart at first glance. Self-checkouts at the front, gum and Red Bull stacked near the registers. But as I looked closer, everything was compressed. The layout was wrong. The aisles were too narrow, the shelving older, slightly rusted in spots. It felt less like a functioning store and more like a faded memory of one. The ceilings were lower than they should have been, making everything feel just a bit too tight. To the right, the pharmacy area was dark and gated shut. To the left was clothing, rows of off-season jackets and tangled racks. Ahead was grocery, but even that looked off. Canned goods lined up too close together. Refrigerators humming louder than usual. A kind of claustrophobic vibe hung in the air, like the building itself was holding its breath. I stood there for a second, uneasy. "Hello?" I called out, my voice sounding too loud in the stillness. No answer. Not completely surprising, I told myself. Middle of the night. Tiny town. Probably just 1 or 2 poor night shift workers trying to avoid people. I tried to shake it off, wrapping my arms around myself as I walked in deeper. Still, that feeling didn't go away. Like I wasn't walking into a store, but into something pretending to be one. The hot food section was dark. No heat lamps glowing. No smell of fried chicken or potato wedges. The deli counter was shuttered too. Metal gate pulled halfway down like a mouth clamped shut. I managed to grab a bag of beef jerky, a pouch of trail mix, and a bottle of water from a lukewarm cooler humming in the corner. Not exactly dinner, but it'd get me through the next few hours. I was making my way toward the back of the store, scanning the overhead signs for a restroom when I heard it. Footsteps. Not mine. Not faint or shuffling either. Heavy. Dragging. Deliberate. They came from the next aisle over. I froze. Breath caught in my throat. The sound stopped. Then, one step. Pause. Another. Slow. Rhythmic. Almost theatrical. I crept toward the edge of the aisle and peeked around the corner. And that's when I saw him. A man motionless, staring straight ahead. He was wearing a full horse mask. Not the cutesy cartoon kind. The cheap Halloween store version. Rubber and plastic, shiny under the dim store lights. Long, unnatural snout. Wide, flared nostrils. Glossy black eyes that looked too blank to be anything but watching. The thing stared right in my direction like it had been waiting for me to look. I jumped a little. A dry laugh caught in my throat. "Okay," I said aloud, forcing a smirk. "That's creepy." I expected him to say something. Maybe boo. Maybe a laugh. Maybe just walk away like it was a prank. But he didn't. He didn't move. Then after what felt like an entire minute, he slowly turned away and walked down the aisle, his steps just as measured and heavy. I stood there frozen, heart fluttering too fast. "Just a weirdo," I muttered under my breath. Probably some teenager messing around, or some bored employee trying to entertain himself. Still, the hair on the back of my neck stayed upright. I clutched my little snack haul tighter and moved toward the front, walking faster than before. The store still looked empty. The quiet wasn't peaceful anymore. It was watching me quiet. I reached the self-checkout stations, which were humming gently in the stillness. I scanned my items, trying not to glance around too much. I didn't want to look scared, didn't want to feel scared. I was sliding my card when I caught movement out of the corner of my eye. 2 more figures. They stepped out slowly from behind one of the closed checkout lanes, both wearing horse masks. One was tall, wearing a black hoodie with the hood pulled up, mask sitting like a grotesque crown. The other had on a flannel shirt, ripped at the collar, hanging loose over cargo pants. They didn't speak. They just stood there, facing me, watching. My throat went dry. I turned slightly, instinctively, and looked down the main aisle behind me. The first man was back. And he wasn't alone anymore. Another one stood beside him, 4 in total now, all wearing horse masks, all completely still, just staring. I grabbed my receipt. I didn't run. I didn't even rush. I forced myself to walk at a normal pace, calm, steady steps. Like nothing was wrong. Like I didn't feel every nerve in my body screaming to get out. The automatic doors slid open. I stepped into the night air. It was thicker now, heavy, like right before a thunderstorm. I glanced toward my car and froze. There was a new car parked beside mine. A silver sedan, dull and unwashed. It hadn't been there before. The windows were tinted and the headlights were off. It just sat there, waiting. Don't look. Just go. Get to the car. I made a straight line to my door. My keys were already in my hand. I unlocked the door, slid into the driver's seat, slammed it shut, and locked it. I exhaled, chest heaving. Then, without meaning to, I looked into the silver car. It was empty. Then, movement. A horse mask rose slowly from the passenger side seat. He had been crouched down, hiding. I screamed, fumbling with the ignition. My hands were shaking so hard I almost dropped the keys. The engine roared to life. Headlights lit up the lot. I slammed the car into reverse. It jolted backward. I didn't care. I spun the wheel, tires squealing against the pavement, and peeled out of the parking space. In my rearview mirror, I saw the masked man step out of the silver car and watch me go. He didn't chase. He just stood there, silent and unblinking. I didn't stop for gas, didn't stop for food. I didn't even pee. I drove straight through the night, 4.5 hours of white-knuckle highway with my eyes darting constantly to the mirrors, expecting to see headlights creeping up behind me. But nothing came. When I finally pulled into my driveway, the sky was a soft pink and gold. I locked every door, drew every blind, and sat on my living room couch until noon, unable to sleep. Just listening. Just waiting. I never reported it. What would I even say? 4 guys in horse masks stared at me in a Walmart. That's not a crime. Just unsettling. But here's the part that still makes my stomach twist. About a week later, during a slow lunch at work, I got curious. I opened my laptop and Googled Marlow, Tennessee Walmart. Nothing came up. Marlow was real. The town existed. But according to every map, every business listing, every satellite image, there was no Walmart there. Just a Family Dollar, a gas station, and a rundown hardware store. I even pulled up satellite view. The lot where I remembered parking, just cracked asphalt and weeds. I don't know what I walked into that night, but it wasn't a Walmart. I wasn't even supposed to be working that Friday night. James had called out sick again. So there I was, sweating through my shirt in the thick July heat, clocking in at the Walmart off Highway 153 in Chattanooga. Graveyard shift, 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. It had been 2 months since I started. The pay wasn't great, but there was something comforting about the quiet that came with the night shift. No crowds, no managers breathing down your neck. Just me, pallets, shelves, and the constant hum of fluorescent lights. I dropped out of community college back in April. My mom had gotten sick, bills were piling up, and I needed something, anything to keep us afloat. Walmart was the only place that called me back. It wasn't glamorous, but it was a job, and I worked hard. The pet care aisle had become my domain. I could rattle off prices of kibble like a preacher quoting scripture. By 11 p.m., the store was nearly empty, the usual mix of night owls and wanderers. An old man loitered near the electronics, pretending to compare TVs he probably couldn't afford. A young couple whispered over baby clothes like they were shopping for someone else's kid. A woman clawed through the clearance bins like they hid diamonds. It was that strange hour when time feels like it's standing still. The overhead speakers kept playing their rotation of bubblegum pop, like the store was trying to pretend nothing was ever wrong. I was in aisle 18, the far back corner, stacking boxes of canned dog food. The cart wobbled under the weight, and the metal felt cold against my arms. I sliced open a box with my box cutter when I heard something. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate. Not like a customer in a hurry. I turned. He wasn't supposed to be there. A man walked into the aisle, tall and sickly thin. He looked like he'd crawled out of an alleyway. His hoodie was torn at the shoulder, jeans stiff with something dark, grease or blood I couldn't tell. His Converse were falling apart, one lace trailing behind like he hadn't noticed. I assumed he was homeless, maybe high. We got all types late at night, people drifting in off the street for cold air or a little chaos. But he didn't say anything, just stepped into the middle of the aisle and stared. I cleared my throat. "Hey, can I help you find something, man?" He tilted his head like a confused dog. A muscle in his cheek twitched. His hand came up halfway like he was about to point, then stopped. Then he whispered, almost too soft to hear, "I don't like you." I blinked. "What?" His face twisted, something mean sliding into place behind his eyes. His lip curled slightly. He just stood there, breathing through his nose like a bull ready to charge. Then he turned the corner and disappeared down the next aisle. My chest tightened. Something about him. It wasn't just off. It was wrong. I stayed still, listening, but all I heard was the soft hiss of the air conditioning. I tried to shake it off. Maybe he was just unstable. We'd had a woman last month scream at the ceiling for 20 straight minutes before security escorted her out. I went back to stacking cans. 1 minute passed, then 2. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw him. His face was just barely peeking around the corner of the aisle. Watching me. He didn't move. Didn't blink. Just stared. A cold prickle ran up my neck. I forced myself to keep working like I hadn't seen him. I grabbed a can, then another, lining them up with trembling fingers. But I could feel him, his stare pressing against the side of my face like a weight. The silence around me thickened. I muttered under my breath, "What the hell is this guy doing?" Then, crash. A loud clatter behind me. I jumped. A whole row of cat treats had exploded off the shelf. Not like they fell by accident, like someone had swung their arm hard from the other side. Plastic pouches burst open on the floor, treats skittering across the tile. I stumbled back, nearly dropping the box cutter. "Hey," I shouted, trying to sound tough. "Grab what you need and move on." Silence. Then that voice again, low and rasping. "Why don't you come around here?" I froze. The same words again, louder now, angry. "Come around here. I want to see your face." I didn't answer, just knelt and started picking up the scattered pouches, hands shaking so bad I could barely hold them. My brain kicked into high gear. Where was Donnie? Our night security guy usually stayed up front near the entrance. He had a bad habit of dozing off in the camera room unless someone radioed him. I stayed crouched. The man didn't speak again, but I knew he was still there. I could feel it. Something predatory lingering just beyond the shelves. Then came more footsteps. Heavier, quicker, voices. And suddenly the aisle lit up with a dozen beams of light. Cops, blue uniforms, flashlights, boots clacking hard against the tile. For one dizzy second I wondered if they'd come for me. But no, whatever was happening, it had shifted. And that man wasn't just another night drifter anymore. I peeked over the edge of the aisle, heart still hammering in my chest. Down near Seasonal, 3 officers were wrestling the man to the ground, one of them grunting as they secured zip ties around his wrists. The guy wasn't screaming or fighting anymore, just sort of trembling. his face blank. I stood there frozen, not quite believing what I was seeing. One of the officers, younger than the others, maybe early 30s, walked over to me. He was breathing hard, his uniform slightly damp with sweat. "You okay?" he asked, voice low, concerned but tired. I nodded slowly, still trying to catch up with reality. What the hell was that?" He exhaled through his nose, glancing back toward the guy now being dragged to his feet. "We've been tracking him for about an hour," he said. "Attacked a customer at a diner off Brainerd Road, random. No motive." Then he bolted. He ran a hand through his short, damp hair. Some clerk recognized him, called it in. We got here just in time. I looked back toward the aisle where the man had been standing just minutes ago. "He was just watching me," I said, barely above a whisper. Didn't even move. Just stared. The officer nodded, jaw tight. "Yeah." Looked like he was gearing up to do it again. After they hauled him away in cuffs, everything in the store felt off, like someone had hit pause on the world but forgot to press play again. They told me to sit in the back office while they reviewed the security footage. The walls were beige and lifeless, the hum of the computer fan the only sound in the room. Angela, my manager, walked in after a few minutes. Mid-40s, tired eyes, always looked like the weight of the job was welded to her shoulders. She handed me a bottle of water and sat down across from me. "You sure you're all right?" she asked, voice softer than usual. I nodded, but the truth sat heavy in my gut. I didn't feel all right. I felt raw, peeled open, like I was still under his gaze even though he was long gone. The cops had more questions. My name, my address. What did he say? Did he touch me? No, I told them. He just stood there, talking weird, breathing like he was already wound up. One of them, a detective maybe, scribbled something in a notebook and said, "We don't think he had a weapon, but we'll know more once we finish processing everything." They let me clock out early. Said I could take the next shift off if I needed. I didn't argue. At 1:46 a.m., I stepped out into the parking lot. The air was cooler, but it didn't help much. The place was dead quiet, almost unnaturally still. Just one police cruiser idling near the front and a janitorial van with its back doors propped open. I stood there for a moment, eyes scanning the lot. The rows of shopping carts sat under the harsh glow of sodium lights. Everything felt too empty. I walked slowly toward my car, hands shoved in my pockets, eyes darting around like they were scanning for something I couldn't name. Then I saw it. A small, folded receipt tucked beneath my windshield wiper. I almost ignored it, figured it was trash. But something about the way it was folded made me hesitate. I pulled it out, unfolded it, and turned it over. And then my blood ran cold. Scrawled across the back in shaky, almost childlike pencil were 3 words. "You'll see me." No signature, no phone number. Just that. I spun around instantly, scanning every corner of the lot. Just shadows. I even popped open my back door before I got in, something I never do, just to be sure. I barely slept that morning, or the next night. Every time I shut my eyes, I saw his face again, half in shadow, twitching, eyes locked onto mine like he'd already decided something. The police called a few days later, told me they hadn't found any weapons on him, no drugs, just a shattered flip phone and a crumpled photo of a dog that looked long dead. They were holding him for psychiatric evaluation. That was the last I ever heard. A week later, I was back. No one said anything about it. Not Angela, not the other night stalkers. But I changed. I started parking right under the brightest light near the front entrance where the cameras could see me. I kept my box cutter clipped tighter to my belt, and I paid attention to everyone who walked through that door. Because the truth is, he didn't need a gun or a knife. He just needed a second. And when you work overnights in a place like Walmart, the scariest thing isn't what does happen, it's knowing how close it came. I was never the jumpy type. Working construction, driving trucks, jobs like that force you to toughen up. You learn to stay sharp, keep your mouth shut, and deal with whatever the day throws at you. But that night, something about it still scratches at the back of my mind, like a splinter I can't dig out. It was 2019. I was working for a roofing contractor just outside Harrison, Arkansas. Nothing fancy, but the money was steady, and I was socking it away to get out of my rundown apartment and move across town. Our shifts were brutal. Up at 6 a.m., and if the sky stayed dry, we'd keep working till 9, sometimes 10 at night. Climbing steep pitches with bundles of shingles, lugging heavy tools under the sun, until my skin felt baked and my muscles throbbed. By the end of the day, I'd feel like I'd been beaten with a bat. That night, I was the last guy left at a residential site about half an hour from my place. The others packed up around 8:00, but I stayed behind to help the homeowner tarp part of the roof after a gust of wind had come through and nearly ripped it clean off. Nice older guy, real worried about rain coming in. I didn't mind helping, figured karma owed me one. By the time I climbed into my truck, it was damn near 2 a.m. I don't remember much of the drive back. It wasn't that I was zoning out mentally. I was just physically shutting down. My eyes kept fluttering shut like they had minds of their own, and I started getting those creepy blackout blinks. The kind where you close your eyes for a second and suddenly you're 2 miles down the road with no memory of how you got there. I knew I couldn't keep driving like that. It was either pull over or become a headline on the morning news. There's a Walmart supercenter right off the 65 bypass, open 24/7. I'd been in there a few times before, usually for work gloves, cheap socks, or frozen burritos. At that hour, I figured it'd be quiet. I could walk around a bit, get my blood moving, grab a Monster, or maybe one of those sketchy caffeine pills they keep near the registers. I turned into the lot and found it mostly deserted. A few cars scattered here and there, couple of big rigs idling off to the side, other guys like me probably fighting sleep. I parked near the front and walked in. The automatic doors whooshed open and I got hit with that blinding, sterile fluorescent light. It stung a little after the dimness of the truck cab. The place smelled like lemon cleaner and plastic packaging, clean in that fake manufactured kind of way. Familiar, though. Weirdly comforting. Up front, 2 cashiers were chatting quietly behind the lanes. An old man stood in line cradling a 30-pound bag of cat food. Someone in a red vest was pushing a broom in lazy circles by the entrance. It felt like the whole place was suspended in this weird humming stillness. I started walking, letting my feet wander wherever. Electronics, outdoor gear, produce. It didn't matter. I just needed to keep moving, shake off the weight pressing down on my shoulders. After about 15 minutes, my head started to clear a little. My body still ached from the job, but at least I wasn't nodding off. That's when I saw him. He was maybe 3 aisles back, tall, wearing a brown jacket, kinda like corduroy, and a tight turtleneck underneath. Strange combo for Arkansas in early September, especially at 2 in the damn morning. But hey, I've seen folks wear slippers and robes to the grocery store. People are weird. I didn't think much of it at first. I turned down the pet supplies aisle and started browsing the shelves, mostly just moving, not really looking at anything. A few seconds later, I felt it. That awful, heavy sensation like heat crawling up your spine, like someone standing too close behind you and breathing softly against your neck. I looked over my shoulder. He was there, not 5 feet away, just standing dead still in the middle of the aisle, not pretending to shop or look at anything. His eyes locked on me, no blinking, no expression. His skin looked pale under the buzzing lights, almost grayish. His face was just blank. Not threatening exactly, but hollow, like something was missing. "Everything all right, man?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. No answer, just that same dead stare. Then, without a word, he turned sharply on his heel and walked away. Just slipped silently into the next aisle, cleaning products. I stood there for a moment, heart thudding in my chest, trying to shake the weird feeling worming into my gut. I've had my share of run-ins with drunks and tweakers. Comes with the territory when you do night work. But this wasn't that. This felt Wrong in a way I couldn't explain. This wasn't just some twitchy meth head or lost soul wandering the aisles. No, this was different. Methodical. Cold. There was something deliberate in how he moved, in how silent he stayed, like he was playing out some plan that only he understood. I tried to shake it off, told myself I was just tired, nerves fried from the long day. I cut my lap short and made a beeline for the cooler near checkout, grabbed a can of Rain energy drink, Blue Raz I think, and turned toward the front. Just wanted to pay, get out, drive home, sleep. But halfway there, he appeared again, right between the toy aisles. I almost dropped the damn can. He was just there, stepping out slow and steady, walking straight toward me. Same pace, same blank stare, like he hadn't just vanished into another aisle a few minutes ago. I stopped in my tracks, squared up without even thinking. Something primal kicked in. "Hey man," I said, my voice low but firm. "You following me?" He didn't answer, didn't even flinch. Just stood there maybe 10 feet away, looking at me like I was a chair or a shopping cart. No reaction, no shift in his expression. Then, just as calmly, he turned and veered off, heading into the frozen foods like we hadn't even spoken. That was it. I was done. I walked straight to checkout, keeping my eyes forward the whole time. My heartbeat was in my ears now, but I kept my cool. The cashier, a middle-aged woman with a tired smile, asked, "Find everything okay?" I gave her a quick nod, tried to sound casual. "Y'all got cameras, right?" She scanned the can and said, "Sure do. Why?" "Just some weird guy hanging around," I said, trying to keep my tone light. "Gave me the creeps, that's all." She raised an eyebrow, glanced past me like she might spot him, but didn't ask more. Probably figured I was exaggerating or over-caffeinated, fine by me. I left with my receipt in one hand and the drink still cold in the other. The automatic doors parted, and I stepped into the night. It was still, unnaturally still. No breeze, no distant traffic, not even the usual hum of lights from the highway. Just a heavy kind of silence that pressed against your ears. I crossed the mostly empty parking lot, heading for my old Ford. My boots echoed on the concrete louder than they should have. Halfway there, that sensation came back, skin crawling, like static running down my spine. I stopped, looked around slowly. Empty lot, rows of sleeping cars, no movement, no sign of him. I got into my truck fast, slammed the door, locked it without hesitation, started the engine, heart hammering harder than it should have. I glanced at the rearview mirror, then the side mirrors. Again. Nothing but shadows. No one followed. No one watched. I pulled out of the lot and onto the bypass, checking my mirrors every few seconds until the Walmart lights disappeared behind me. When I finally made it home, my body felt like lead, but my mind was buzzing. Whether it was the energy drink or pure adrenaline, I couldn't tell. I peeled off my work clothes, collapsed into bed, and stared at the ceiling, waiting for my heart to calm down. Every little creak outside made me twitch. I must have dozed off eventually, but not for long. Maybe an hour later I woke up to this deep, steady growl, an engine idling outside my window. At first I thought I was dreaming. I stayed still, listening. But it didn't fade. It didn't move. Just rumbled there, loud and low like someone was waiting. I sat up slowly, wiped my eyes, heart already pounding again. I tiptoed to the window, careful not to make a sound, and peeled back the blinds just a crack. And there it was, a truck. Right out front, headlights off, engine running. And he was in it. Same man, same brown jacket, same hollow expression. Sitting perfectly still behind the wheel, staring directly at my apartment, at my window, at me. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I just stared, eyes locked with his through the glass. He didn't react, didn't twitch, didn't blink. And then, as if he knew I was watching, he suddenly floored it. The engine roared, tires screamed, and the truck peeled away into the night, leaving nothing but a burnt rubber smell and my heart thundering in my chest. I stood there frozen, blinds still pressed to my cheek, too stunned to think. Minutes passed. Maybe more. I don't know. Who was he? How did he find me? What the hell did he want? But the scariest part, the part that still gnaws at me years later, is that he didn't do anything. He didn't try to break in, didn't say a word. He just watched. I called the cops the next morning, filed a report like you're supposed to, told them everything. Creepy guy at Walmart, truck outside my place. They nodded, asked if I got a plate number. I hadn't. Asked if he threatened me. He hadn't. No crime, no proof, no help. Nothing ever came of it, and I never saw him again. But that's what messes with me the most. Not the encounter, not the night itself, but the silence afterward, the never knowing. Because sometimes now not knowing is worse than anything. I never imagined a night shift at Walmart would end with me hiding under my own bed, clutching my phone with shaking hands, texting 911 while some lunatic pounded on my bedroom window like he knew me, like he wanted me. But let me back up. Let me tell you how this all started. I'm Marcus, 28, born and raised in Columbus, Ohio. Nothing flashy about me. I played football in high school, not good enough for college ball, and held a part-time job at a car wash. I went to community college for a couple years, floated through gen eds, never really found a direction. Honestly, I was fine with that. I wasn't chasing some big dream. I just wanted to work, pay my bills, and maybe catch a Browns game on Sundays. Keep life simple. But life doesn't care what you want. A few years ago, my mom got sick. Cancer. The kind that doesn't give you time to prepare. She passed in under 6 months. I moved back in with my dad after that. We'd never been close. He's the kind of man who thinks silence is a virtue, but grief softens the edges, or at least dulls them enough to survive. Rent was brutal, so living with him made sense, even if our conversations rarely went beyond, "You eat yet?" I needed a job, anything stable. Walmart was hiring overnight stockers. Nothing glamorous, but it paid, so I took it. Figured it'd be temporary, just something to get by. At first, I didn't mind it. Fewer customers, less chaos. The store felt like its own quiet world after dark. Fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, pallet jacks rolling across tile, scanners beeping softly like digital crickets. There was a rhythm to it, peaceful in a weird way. But after a few months, that peace twisted into something else. The buzz in the lights started feeling like static drilling into the back of my skull. The silence turned hollow, like the building was listening. There were 5 of us on the night crew. Tyrell was in his 30s, ex-security from Cleveland, funny as hell, always cracking jokes, always had some weird story. Danielle was a single mom, early 40s, tough as nails, probably the hardest worker I've ever met. Then there was Joey, 19, fresh out of high school. Lazy sometimes, but good-natured. Mr. Keller was our overnight manager. Mid-50s, always wore a tie like he thought someone might promote him if he looked the part. And then me, the quiet guy. Head down, keep to myself, get the job done. We stocked shelves, mopped up spills, helped the occasional drunk wanderer looking for a bottle of wine they swore was right here last week. Nothing out of the ordinary. Until one Thursday night. It was 3:17 a.m. We'd just finished our break, instant noodles and vending machine coffee that tasted like burnt plastic. Tyrell was midway through a story about a raccoon breaking into the receiving bay. We were all laughing, half asleep, when the PA system clicked on, and we heard it. Not Keller, not anyone we knew. Just a voice. Soft, barely a whisper. "Help me." That's all it said. One sentence, but it didn't sound like a prank. It sounded desperate. Real. We all froze. Looked around at each other like maybe one of us was messing with the others. Danielle's brows knit together. "Could someone have gotten in after closing?" she asked. Keller was already brushing it off, saying it was probably a glitch or maybe someone messing with the intercom from outside. Joey said it sounded like a kid. Keller pulled up the security feed. Nothing. No movement. Doors locked, receiving bay shut tight. The place was a tomb. Still, I felt off, like something in the air had shifted. You ever feel like someone's watching you, even when you know you're alone? That's what it was. Like something invisible had just turned to face me. Keller told us to shake it off and get back to work. He even cracked a joke. Maybe it's the ghost of rollback prices. A weak laugh followed, but no one really thought it was funny. I got assigned to aisle 17, cleaning supplies. Rows of bleach, disinfectant, Windex. I was just slicing open a fresh box of bleach bottles when I heard it again. "Help me." Right behind me. I turned so fast I knocked a bottle to the floor. It rolled across the tiles and bumped against the shelf. No one was there, just rows of Pine Sol and Febreze staring back at me. I said, "Hello?" Loud enough for someone nearby to hear. Nothing. No reply. Just silence so thick it felt like it had weight. Then I saw it. A handprint. Small, greasy, right on the bottle in front of me. The kind of smudge a kid would leave. But it vanished the moment I blinked. Just gone. I told Keller. He didn't even look up from his clipboard. Just sighed and muttered, "You probably need sleep, man." Maybe he was right. But the next night, Tyrell didn't show. No call, no text, nothing. We figured he just took the night off or maybe slept through his alarm. But the morning crew found his car, still sitting in the parking lot, locked, cold. And Tyrell? Gone. Doors were locked. His phone was still inside. The cops came, did a half-assed sweep of the place, and left after 15 minutes, saying maybe Tyrell just wandered off. Maybe he needed space. But that didn't add up. Tyrell was dependable, early to every shift, always double-checking the lock on his locker. He wouldn't ghost us like that. Not without a word. Not without his keys or his damn phone. A week later, Danielle quit. Said she had to go out of town for a family emergency, but I didn't buy it. Not after what I saw in her face the night before. Pale, lips trembling, her eyes darting toward the cleaning aisle every couple of minutes like something might crawl out of it. "I saw her," she whispered to me during break. "A little girl. She was standing by the bleach, just humming." I blinked. "What girl?" "I followed her," she said, voice shaking. "Down aisle 17. Every time I turned a corner, she was just ahead. Then she disappeared, like she walked into the wall or something." Danielle left early that night and never came back. After that, the air in the store changed. Heavier, denser, like the silence was carrying something in it, like it wanted to be broken. I stopped sleeping. My shifts dragged. Every creak in the ceiling, every flicker of the lights felt like a warning. I told myself I was being paranoid. Then I got the message. It was 2 days after Danielle quit. I was lying in bed around 4 a.m., scrolling through Instagram, trying to distract myself. That's when it popped up, a DM from an account called Now17Hold. No profile picture, no followers, just following me. There was one post, a blurry photo. It took me a second, but then my stomach dropped. It was my bedroom window, taken from outside. I stared at it. The angle, the lighting, it was recent. My curtains were half drawn just like they were right now. I messaged back. "Very funny, but this is creepy, man." Scene. No reply. I blocked the account immediately, heart pounding. Then I told Keller about it when I got to work that night. He barely looked up from his clipboard. "Probably Joey messing with you," he muttered. "Kid's got too much free time." The next night, I was back in aisle 17, because of course I was, and that's when the lights flickered. Not just a quick flash, 3 times, then total blackout. 15 seconds, maybe less. But long enough to hear the footsteps. Quick, light, running toward me. Then a whisper, so close it felt like breath on my ear. I see you now. I dropped everything, bottle, box cutter, clipboard, and sprinted for the front of the store. My legs didn't stop moving until I hit the doors. Keller caught up with me a minute later. You all right? I told him what I'd heard, what I'd felt, that someone had been right there. He looked at me like I was unhinged. You want to switch to aisle 10 or something? Marcus, you're being dramatic. That night, when I got home, I didn't even take my shoes off before I checked my phone. Another DM. Different username this time. Come closer 4830. 2 new photos. First one, my driveway. Second, my bedroom window again. But this time, I was in the photo, sitting on my bed, looking at my phone. I nearly dropped it. I called the cops, told them everything. They came out, took a statement, opened a report. But unless the guy broke in or physically threatened me, their hands were tied. So I waited. I stopped sleeping again. Slept with a baseball bat next to my bed. Kept the lights off and the curtains drawn. Then came the tapping. Tap, tap, tap. I froze. My breath caught in my throat. I turned slowly toward the window. There was a silhouette, a shape. Tall, still. Then, bang. So hard the glass cracked. I didn't scream. I ran. Straight to the bathroom. Slammed the door shut, locked it, backed into the corner, and dialed 911 with trembling fingers. The cops came fast that time. Did a full sweep of the house, the yard, the street. No one. But they found something. Folded and tucked just beneath my bedroom window was a single piece of paper. 2 words written in red marker. Aisle 17. That's when they took me seriously. They ran a trace on the Instagram accounts. Took a couple days, but they got a hit. It was Joey. Yeah, Joey. The quiet, goofy 19-year-old who dragged his feet and always asked to restock the cleaning supplies. The one who cracked too many jokes and smiled too little. Turns out he'd been staying in the store after hours. Hiding, watching, recording. He had cameras planted all over. Back room, break room, even outside the bathrooms. He told the cops he was curious. Wanted to see how long he could go before anyone noticed. Said the voice on the PA was just for fun. Said he followed Tyrell home one night. Tyrell confronted him. Then, nothing. Tyrell's car was still there, but Tyrell never came back. They haven't found him. Joey's in jail now, charged with stalking, harassment, attempted break-in. If they link him to Tyrell, the list will get longer. But it doesn't help. It doesn't undo the nights I spent listening to the walls creak like someone was behind them. It doesn't stop the dreams. And it sure as hell doesn't explain why. Just last week, I got a voicemail. Blocked number, just 2 words. Same voice. Help me. I deleted it. I don't work nights anymore. I don't even shop at Walmart. I'll pay double for milk at a gas station if I have to. I just want to forget. But aisle 17, it's not done with me yet.